In this video, we're talking about 4 players you should not draft in fantasy football. Starting at number 4, Christian McCaffrey. I know a lot of people aren't going to like this, but hear me out for a second. CMC is coming off a huge year from a statistical and usage standpoint, where he led the NFL with 417 touches, including the postseason. Only 2 running backs since 2013 finished as top 12 backs the following year after leading the NFL in touches. I got that stat from Andrew Erickson on Fantasy Pros. Go check him out. But that is absolutely insane. Only 2 running backs the following year after leading the NFL in touches finished as top 12 backs. Not, RB1 overall, top 12. You're drafting Christian McCaffrey at the 101. You're expecting to get that in return. I don't think that happens this year. And let me go on further. Christian McCaffrey, whether people like it or not, is 28 years old, and we still cannot ignore his injury history, where he played a total of 10 games over the course of 2 seasons in 2020 and 2021. That still exists. That is still a risk. And my next concern is this San Francisco offensive line. They're a middle of the pack unit, and a lot of it is riding on 36-year-old Trent Williams, who is kind of the glue holding this offensive line together. 36 years old is pretty old, especially for that position, and where injury risk becomes a lot more likely the older you get. That's honestly another huge factor. What happens if Trent Williams goes down? I know you could say that hypothetically for every player in every situation, but really, Trent Williams means probably more to that San Francisco offensive line than any other offensive lineman in the NFL. And on top of that, no, I'm not going to bring up the Madden curse because I don't really think it exists. It hasn't really proved viable over the last 5 or so years. But what I will say is the last 5 to 7 first overall picks in fantasy seem to be cursed. Last year, who was the consensus 101? Justin Jefferson. Missed a lot of time due to injury. The year before that, in 2022, Jonathan Taylor was the consensus 101. Missed a lot of time to injury. And then the 2 years after that were both Christian McCaffrey, where I just talked about he played 10 games over those 2 seasons in 2020 and 2021. So I know that's not great analysis, but a lot of CMC, outside of the things that I just talked about, is gut calls here. San Francisco as a unit, as a team, as a whole, was relatively healthy all year. I don't see that happening this year, and we can't predict injuries, and I don't like people who base all of their analysis off injuries. I don't think it's right. But CMC is giving me those vibes where, like, if he falls to me at 5, yeah, I'm taking him. But at the 101, not doing it. And I know a lot of people aren't going to like it, but that's where I'm at. Those are my points. Again, a lot of it is just, I don't feel good about it. At number 3, Davante Adams. He's a consensus 2nd round pick. He's going 19th overall in underdog drafts right now. You guys know me. Well, you probably don't know me yet, but I don't like aging receivers, and father time comes for everyone. Davante is entering his age 31 season, and we already saw some of his metrics start to decline last year as he posted his lowest mark in PFF's receiving grade and yards after the catch. We don't like that. Adams saw 175 targets last year, which we love. He was only second to CeeDee Lamb, who had 181. But when you see that much volume, finishing as the wide receiver 15 in fantasy points per game, it doesn't add up for me. If you're seeing the 2nd most targets in the league and you're wide receiver 15, guys, that tells you everything you need to know. That is a red flag. That is the biggest red flag ever, right? He's not very efficient. He needs a lot of targets to get a lot of yards, to get a lot of fantasy production. Adams only went over 100 receiving yards 3 times last year. 2 out of those 3 games required 20 plus targets. And you could say, oh, well, Gardner Minshew's in town. He's not an upgrade over Aiden O'Connell, you guys. They're about the same quarterback. In terms of yards last year, Aiden averaged 201 passing yards per game, while Minshew averaged 194. They're both just guys. They're both just average quarterbacks. This isn't Aaron Rodgers. This isn't Jordan Love, who Davante Adams could have had, but he got a little greedy. We won't go into that. And then you mix in more target competition now with Brock Bowers. Jacoby Myers is still there. Yes, Jacobs is gone, but Zamir White's still going to get his. I don't love it. For a second-round pick, give me Saquon Barkley over Devontae. Give me Jalen Waddle, who I think has a huge bounce-back year with an aging Tyreek Hill. Give me Devon Achane, who I love, who I think has top 3 upside. There's so many better options, you guys. Devontae Adams has the name. But don't let that fool you. Do not draft him in the second round this year. All right, on to my next player you should not draft in fantasy at cost this year is Sam Laporta, who, yes, is coming off a historic season for a tight end, breaking the tight end rookie record for most receptions in a season, finishing as the tight end 3 in fantasy points per game, scoring 10 touchdowns. He was phenomenal. If you drafted him late in fantasy or got him off the waiver wire, you had a good shot of winning your league. That's great. But in fantasy, you can't just draft players that had success the previous year. You have to look at situation and you have to look at price. And I think Laporta is way too expensive for a 3rd round pick. You guys, we're drafting him at his ceiling in a crowded Detroit offense where Amon-Ra St. Brown, absolute mega superstar, just got the bag, is going to get his. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a lot more involved, especially in the passing game. It's not going to take him until week 7 or whatever it was for Detroit to be like, oh, yeah, that's why we spent the top 12 pick on him. Like, don't let me get into that because I was a Jahmyr Gibbs owner last year, and I was very frustrated for the first part of the year. And then Detroit's talking about, oh, Jameson Williams he's got he's locked in, and whatever Dan Campbell's saying, he's going to be a major contributor this year. So you're telling me you're going to spend a 3rd round pick on Sam Laporta when he's going to be competing for targets with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams. He's essentially, in my opinion, the 3rd target in this potent passing game behind Amon-Ra St. Brown and Gibbs. No thank you. There's a lot better values at tight end. Give me Trey McBride, who still is, you could argue, is expensive, but he's my tight end 1 this year. I like Dalton Kincaid. Heck, Jake Ferguson in round 8. I think he is a monster year. Don't spend a 3rd round pick on a tight end. It's a trap. It's a trap. Sam Laporta, is he going to have a great year? Absolutely. Is he a stud? Absolutely. Is he going to pay off at his round 3 ADP? I don't think so. And at number 1, another player that a lot of people probably won't disagree with is Kyren Williams. You guys, hear me out. Kyren is coming off the perfect season outside of him getting injured. He averaged a touchdown on every 14 touches last year. To put that in perspective, Christian McCaffrey averaged a touchdown in every 16 touches, and CMC and Kyren are in 2 different stratospheres from a talent perspective. That type of production, I don't even need to tell you, is insane. It's not sustainable. Kyren was the RB2 in fantasy points per game with 15 total touchdowns. Kyren was 1st in snap share, 4th in red zone touches, 4th in opportunity share, and from weeks 2 to 17, Kyren averaged 22 touches and 117 total yards. Some of his advanced metrics were really good. Was all of his success based on volume? Absolutely not. Is he going to see that type of volume this year? Absolutely not. Blake Corum is going to be a thing. We can't get too hot on rookie running backs. We saw Zach Charbonnet, Tank Bigsby, not do much of anything last year. So I'm with you on that. But Blake Corum reminds me a lot of Kyren Williams. They're like the same player. Blake Corum just might be better. Sean McVay's indecisiveness with running backs, as he's very hot and cold, also worries me. Here's the scenario that where my biggest concern lies. We'll keep this brief. I don't want to go too long on this. Last year, when Kyren got hurt, no one filled the void. He didn't have any competition. What Darrell Henderson was in, or Royce Freeman, who's neither of them are on an NFL team, I don't think, right now. So when Kyren came back from injury, he was the 1A. He was the guy, no questions. But what happens if Kyren, who's already having foot issues from his foot surgery 2 years ago, so what if Kyren has a foot or an ankle issue? Blake Corum comes in and looks phenomenal. What do you think a smart head coach like Sean McVay is going to do? A lot of people right now think, oh, when Kyren comes back, let's say he misses a couple games, okay, no big deal, then Kyren is going to be the workhorse again. I could not disagree with that more. I think if Corum is playing really well while Kyren is out, that it's going to be a 1A, 1B situation because Rams have playoff aspirations like most teams do, but the LA is going to be legit this year. They don't care about your fantasy team. They're not going to wear Kyren out in the regular season when they need him for the playoffs. So they're going to mix in Kyren with Blake. I promise you that. And then you could say, oh, well, you're just banking on injury. What if Kyren never gets hurt? Hey, that could happen. Kyren may never get hurt. But you're going to have a healthy Cooper Kupp. Puka Nacua is going to be even better this year. And I think Blake Corum gets some work. Whether it's just, relief for Kyren, he's going to get on the field early. But this is going to be a very pass-happy team. And Kyren was not really involved in the passing game last year. So I don't think Kyren is going to see this crazy volume. I don't think he comes close to 15 touchdowns. Cooper Kupp is going to get his, even though I'm all in on Puka this year. I think Cooper Kupp has a quietly nice year. They're going to be throwing a ton. I just don't see it. And in my last argument, where a lot of people are probably going to say, well, you're not spending a first-round pick on Kyren. I get it. A lot of the risk that I just talked about is baked into his round 3 ADP. So I don't hate it, but I am not drafting Kyren at round 3. If I can get him in round 4, sure. But give me Derrick Henry. Like, I know I don't like older players. And I know I've doubted Henry a lot in previous years, but I just can't. With him in Baltimore, with that touchdown upside, I can't. And who I also really like over Kyren this year, Isaiah Pacheco. Especially with Jerick McKinnon gone, Pacheco is going to be a workhorse. CEH isn't going to cut into any of his work. I think Isaiah could be huge in the passing game as well on an electric offense. So give me Derrick Henry and Pacheco over Kyren any day of the week. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.